Let me present Dr. Guillermina Benavides. Guillermina Benavides is professor and director of the Master in Strategic Foresight at the School of Government and Public Transformation at Tecnológico de Monterrey. She holds a PhD in social work from the University of Texas at Arlington and the Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, a master in public administration and public policy, and a BA in international relations from Tecnológico de Monterrey. She has attended executive seminars on future study, scenarios, and energy policy at Oxford University, the University of Houston, and the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. She has participated in consulting projects advising the federal government and state and municipal government on public policy, knowledge, economy, and social development policy internationally. Was an external consultant for the National Opinion Research Center for the evaluation of a program of the Inter-American Development Bank projects. In addition, she has done strategic foresight and futures consulting for some of the her research interests are future study, strategic foresight, interinstitutional coordination of public policy, and research methods. She has several publications in national and international journals. You have approximately 20 minutes to complete your presentation. Please turn on your camera and share your presentation.
Thank you. Just a quick question. It's going to be time for a Q&A, or I only present 20 minutes, or how does it work?
Only presentation, and you can use 10 minutes more if is necessary. You advise for chat, okay?
Okay, so if there are questions that can be done for via chat, that's correct?
Only for presentation, okay?
Okay, thank you. So thank you for having me. I am Guillermina Benavides. I, as the introduction said, I work at Tecnológico de Monterrey, a private university in Mexico. I'm going to explain a little bit about the context of this paper before starting the presentation. We have had in the university program, a master's degree program on strategic foresight since the years 2000s. And we were thinking about how we can assess if the alumni of the program are really using foresight and futures methods outside the master's degree program in the real world. So we have been going, and after we also have been reading about the force and competency model developed by Hans and others, and also the future literacy framework developed by Miller and others. So we thought about how we can link these two frameworks together, because one talks about literacy and the other one talks about competencies. And in our understanding, literacy, being literate on something, should have also linked a series of competencies. So we try to link these two frameworks or models and try to assess if our alumni of the master's degree on strategic foresight really do have our foresight competence, that have these competencies, and we can link that to the future literacy framework. So this is a first attempt to do this. It needs a lot of work, but we thought that it's interesting, the findings we have. So I'm going to share my screen now. This paper was worked with another professor here at Tecnológico, the Dr. Alejandro Diaz. He was unable to attend at this moment, but it's a joint, I don't know why. Here, it doesn't appear his name. That is our contact information. So if there are any questions, you can reach out to us through Twitter or through our email. So one of the main ideas here, a little bit of context, is that we thought that, as several others have established, strategic foresight and future studies are easier permeable, no? Because there aren't many programs or graduate programs or specific courses on foresight and futures literacy. So if you want to do foresight activity or futures studies activity, where do you go to study? So sometimes, and so many tools and methods deals with the future. So you could easily say, I'm a foresight practitioner, although you haven't really know or are aware of there is this huge or this interesting disciplinary area of future studies and foresight. So that there's have been some efforts about bringing some accreditations to the field, to different programs, but it hasn't happened like in a real way. So this is one of the first challenges foresight professionals and future study professionals face when they go outside in the world. And in the Mexican context, foresight and futures methods are not really known, and they aren't also much really used in big organization. And no, I think we are going there, but there is still some resistance of using some of these methods and an approximation about analyzing the futures. We are more linked to the idea of forecasting and trying to predict the future in order to plan for that future, but not this idea of multiple possibilities. So the idea of this paper was to really assess if the future literacy the framework could be useful to grasp if students have these competencies that understand like the different tools, methods, and frameworks that they should offer whenever they do this kind of project about foresight and futures. So this is like the context of the idea of the paper. So which was our hypothesis? Our hypothesis was that our graduates of the program, our alumni of the programs, should be able to consciously use the future by deploying foresight competencies. So as Miller establishes, being future literate means to be able to consciously use the future. So if you are able to do that, you should deploy several competencies. And the other authors that had thought and write about foresight competencies are Hines and others in these foresight competency models. And later on, we will analyze which competencies are. So we try to assess if our students are future literate, meaning they have the knowledge and skills, the academic competencies, to use the futures by deploying conscious anticipatory systems, either closed or semi-closed. And these are based on the assumption 1, 3, and 4 of the future literacy framework. And if we are able to say that, then if students have developed foresight competencies, as explained by the foresight technique, because as you know, there are many different foresight tools and methods with different epistemic assumptions. But if they are consciously using the future and they have the idea of what they want to do, they are able to choose different from this many of tools and methods how they are going to use the future. You know? So it's the two levels of the analysis we attempt to assess in this paper. So what are some of the big definitions about future literacy and future literacy framework? A future literate person, as Miller and others says, can consciously understand the futures and is able to select different anticipatory assumptions. And these different anticipatory assumptions are linked, at least in these three, I1, I2, I3, and I4, to different future studies, tools, and methods. No? So depending on what they want to do, they can use different assumptions and choose different methods. Obviously, well, not obviously, but the framework consider other assumptions also, but we are focusing our attention in the one that Miller defined as closed, semi-closed anticipatory systems. For most of the methods defined in these assumptions are the ones that are taught in future studies. That is the ones that are considered for anticipation for this future, to plan and prepare organization to be ready and to anticipate or to prevent, to anticipate or to plan what they want to do. But there are other assumptions that are not considered in this assessment we have done. That there are those that deal with the semi-open anticipatory systems that deal with novelty and the unknown. So that since we one of the conclusions, maybe where I am jumping far ahead, was that for us to be able to really assess if alumni or if foresight professionals are using these different assumptions, we believe that for truly grasp the abilities, we need to further operationalize the concepts and the anticipatory assumptions of the framework to fully develop this or to attempt to measure in what level our foresight professionals are deploying this kind of assumptions or methods. So the purpose, but with what we have and with what we teach in the program, we were trying, or we try to assess if students or alumni of the program are using consciously the future, especially in this idea of anticipation for the future and not for anticipation for emergence. So what is the link with the force and competency model? We try to build a bridge between these two frameworks. So if someone is future literate, then the idea behind this paper was he or she is able to deploy foresight competencies. So this model defines a series of competencies that foresight professionals should have. There is the ability to the competency of framing, scanning, future envisioning, designing, and adapting. So we try to measure in what grade those different those alumni has these competencies. By we develop a survey to all of our graduates. We have around 300 graduates of the master degree program. Around 100 graduates answered this survey. What we found, we try to assess first we did done this in a two-step way. We first analyze if students hold abilities and in how these abilities fit in these different competencies. And then if they have the ability, we define if students, by using different techniques of foresight methods, have developed these competencies. So that is how we and if they are able to do this, then they are future literate because they are consciously using the future. That was the idea behind the paper. So according to Miller, the research idea is that future literacy is a capability that can be learned. He stated that it's like it's similar to reading and writing, so we are able to use the future. So one possible way, assuming that we thought that one possible way to do this is through development of academic competencies in formal education programs, such as graduate programs, like the one we offer here at Tecnológico in Monterrey. And we have to consider also a great variety of foresight and future studies methods. So this has been a little, this has been something that we commonly face as a complex, we face this complication when we try to decide what to teach our students, given the breadth of the future studies field and the different methods and the different epistemic assumption of each method. For example, we try to teach our students systems dynamic, and systems dynamics hold different, require different skills that some of the students don't necessarily have, but we also try to teach participative scenario planning. So they are based on different ways and modes of knowing. So each one has different complexities in order to teach them to the students. So given this variety and ideas and different methods with different ways of knowing, if we can call them that, it's kind of difficult because we sometimes have students very, very interested in these more quantitative ways to analyze the future, but we have also students interested in this participatory, creative, design thinking nature of future studies and future methods. So when we read about the future literacy framework, one of the strengths that we identified was that it was wide enough to cover all these different tools and methods used in future studies. So what do we do to do this? As I already said, that was obtained from a survey for the study of the alumni of the programs. We have around a 53% response rate. We use a confirmatory factor analysis regarding to identifying if foresight ability fit to the foresight competency model. And then we try to assess if alumni can constantly use the future. And we estimated the 5 linear models of these competencies, of specific foresight competencies: is framing, scanning, future, designing, visioning, and adapting. This is the format for the confirmatory factor analysis model. We use a Likert scale of disabilities, where the students assess if they are able or not able to do all these different abilities. And then we use this confirmatory factor analysis of how these abilities connect to the different competencies of the foresight competency models. So time and space, context of driver, history, and stakeholder participation fit framing, unbiased and multi-view futures fit to futuring, quality sources and weak signals fit to scanning, strategic analysis and running workshop fits to visioning, and communication and table indicators fit to designing or adapting, right? So we saw that there is a strong, that these abilities fit really well to these competencies, foresight competencies. So that was something we were really happy to find out from the result of the survey. And then the linear models, what we find is maybe because there aren't many, the number of respondents were around 80 something. So we need more people to assess this. But what we found is that this was the second step of the analysis. If the students were able to, from the abilities to have foresight competencies, then we assess how the different techniques of and methods of foresight methods develop this series of competencies. So we found out that scenario planning, for example, develop all the competence, all the foresight competencies: framing, scanning, futuring, visioning, designing. So because it's positive, and the model show that it's positive in all for the development of all competencies. Horizon scanning specifically developed the scanning competency, System dynamics also it's for futuring. And interestingly, being a woman, it's helps for scanning and helps also for designing. The other one was where it's statistically significant. So it was just a first attempt, but we thought that it shows something promising for further evaluation, maybe of programs trying to teach foresight and futures methods. So what are our big conclusions after all this of this research? Being literate of something requires a series of specific competencies. So regarding future studies, we try to assess the link between the future literacy framework or the possible link between the future literacy framework and the foresight competency model. As I said before, this is a first attempt to measure whether graduates of a master's degree program in strategic foresight are really futures literate, understood as someone using consciously the future. So that's our definition of being future literate, and whether they have developed foresight competencies based on the foresight competency models. Our results suggest that the graduates of the program are consciously using the future, especially assumption 1, 3, and 4, not 5 and 6, that those deal with emergence, but that anticipation for the future, and had developed the different levels of the 5 competencies identified by the foresight competency as the framework model. What other conclusions are that we need to better operationalize each anticipatory assumption to be fully to be able to grasp the difference among them and classify all the different methods. Because if we want to use this, or we thought that we want to use this framework, this theory as a framework to assess if the development of competencies, we need to further have clear definition of what is meant of each one of these assumptions. In this research, the graduate survey is intended to measure if alumni can deploy foresight competencies by choosing the appropriate methods to imagine different future, given the different all the menu we have of foresight tools and methods, and anticipate for optimization or contingency futures. That is anticipation for the future. And we assume at the end that their alumni are future literate if they can choose a specific method in line with Miller's definition of future literacy as the capability to design and implement how to use the future, right? For the research, what we thought that we can do next, or we can continue to analyze how we can do this. Hines and others in that paper in the World Future Review Journal suggest that the future competency model should reflect the shifting competency needs of the field. That means that if there are further needs that these 5 foresight competencies should be adapted. So we thought that for the research will be important to identify what specific competencies a future literate person should have to expand the concept of consciously using the future. So which foresight competency, competencies of the foresight competency models could be framed to deal with novelty and emergence and emergency, that is anticipation as assumption 5 and 6, not only from the anticipation assumption 1, 3, and 4, because we thought that some of the competencies of the foresight competency model, such as scanning, designing, and adapting, can deal with emergence and novelty and open up possibility in the present, not only for contingency planning or to prepare and plan for the future. And to verify the superior levels, the scholar will require also reinterpreting competency from a binary approach, like to have or not to have, or to be consciously, or to use consciously the future, or not to use it consciously, but but to assess as a matter of degree how competent you are in something, not only the binary of you have it or you don't have it, but in what level do you have certain competencies. I think that will be an interesting next step for all these frameworks and analysis. In that sense, the superior competencies implies a matter of degree that rather than a mere presence or absence of the desired characteristics. I think that should be an interesting approach. And for now, at the end, we think that there's only room for improvement. We are working, this was only a first attempt to try to assess and to link these two frameworks together. And we thought that some of our findings were interesting. And another important thing for us is that if we have this graduate program on foresight and future studies, we should try to assess to what degree our alumni are really being foresight competent, are developing foresight competencies, and how to what degree they are future literate. So for us, that was our objective to assess if our alumni are really competent are really using foresight competencies. I think that's it. I don't know if there are any comments or suggestions or questions.
Hi, I don't know if, my name is Monica, so I thank you for the presentation. I think this is very relevant for all the foresight programs that are nowadays around the world. So I think that the methods you are using is really great. So I have 3 questions. The first is, I will tell you so you can decide how to answer that. The first is, if you are considering to keep assessing and analyzing your alumni learning, and when doing so, how much time after graduation are you considering that has to pass before you do the survey? And the third one is, how are you considering to materialize this methodology to then be able to share for other programs to also use these kind of assessments? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Monica. Well, this was the first attempt. What we did in this first attempt was the survey was sent to all, although recent graduates, and that was also an interesting finding because in each revision of the program, different tools and methods are not all. We didn't teach the same tools and methods to the graduates. So some, for example, for the last whole cohort that answered the survey, we teach them robust decision making and these methods that are more recent, that the traditional ones, Delphi's, the French school, scenario planning. So I think that that's the next step. If we could analyze how different methods and techniques develop different foresight capabilities, that would also be of relevant, because again, future studies it's really different and have many tools and methods, and not necessarily we can group them all together. And many of them are not really. They are classified as futures methods because what they deal with the future, but not really because they were developed by futurists and foresight professionals. So that also a kind of complexity for us, that we have when trying to define what to teach our students. So yeah, I think that we can analyze this how our alumni develop these foresight competences, and we can for me we can send them the survey right after graduating, but maybe the analysis of the different we should divide the analysis from time of graduation. Maybe that will be a good idea. And the second question was, what we're going to do to make this to available to other programs? That was the question. Yes. Well, we send this to a journal, so we are pending if they want to publish it. So that's our first way to do this. I don't know. I hope that it gets published. If not, we are going to keep working, and because for us it's really important to assess if really our students are developing these foresight competencies and if they are really futures literate. So yes, that was this idea.
Thank you very much,
Thank you for
Dr.
the paper. I'm
Guillermina
gonna.
Benavides. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Dr. Guillermina Benavides, for your important contribution in this interesting presentation.